For centuries past, the stories of the women of the Bible have inspired, enlightened, and empowered us towards godly living. Their lives remain relevant today. Let us get to know their faith and triumphs over pain as we travel back in time and unravel God's wonderful workings in their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the women of the Bible? Eve, the first woman, the wife of Adam, and the mother of all humankind. She was created to become the helpmate of her husband. Tempted by the cunning serpent, however, Eve disobeyed God and ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Such an act allowed sin to mar creation and brought about a deep chasm between God and men. Eve's story teaches us to weigh our choices carefully and to temper our desires with wisdom. Sarah, the mother of the Jewish nation and the wife of Abraham. Sarah's life was blighted by her barrenness, but God came to her rescue. Fulfilling his promise to Abraham, God allowed Sarah to conceive and give birth to a son, Isaac, at the age of 90. Although Sarah initially doubted God's faithfulness, she later believed. Hence, God saw it fit to include Sarah in the Faith Hall of Fame in the book of Hebrews chapter 11. Miriam, the older sister of Moses. Miriam was a woman of worship and a prophetess. Miriam led the Israelites in grateful worship after their miraculous escape from Egypt through the parted Red Sea. Later in her ministry, however, she became jealous of Moses and questioned the latter's authority to lead God's people. God's judgment against Miriam's rebellion was swift and severe. She became leprous and was healed only through the intercession of Moses. Like Miriam, all of us women are prone to the sin of pride and discontent. Thus, we must be careful to know our place and operate only through the giftings, roles, and calling that God has instituted for us. Deborah, the fearless prophetess. Deborah is Israel's only female judge and is known as one of their wisest and noblest leaders. She was a counselor, a warrior, and the wife of Lapidoth, a woman of courage. Deborah selected a general to lead the charge against the kingdom the Israelites were seeking to conquer. Her patriotism and boldness in battle should inspire women to be strong and good leaders. From her life, we learn that women can be leaders who can encourage, motivate, and inspire their followers with supportive words. Ruth, a loyal friend. Ruth was Naomi's daughter-in-law. She was a model of loving kindness who acted in ways that promoted the well-being of others. When Naomi's husband and two sons died, Naomi urged her daughters-in-law to return to their own families. The other obliged, but Ruth refused to leave her. Ruth demonstrated her dedication and loving kindness when she accompanied her mother-in-law back to Judah. Consequently, although she was a Gentile, Ruth received the great inheritance of being in the lineage of Jesus, our Messiah. She was a woman who clung to her destiny through faithfulness and loyalty. Esther, a woman of influence. The name Esther means star. In Hebrew, Esther's name means myrtle, which signify peace and thanksgiving. Esther was a beautiful Jew from the tribe of Benjamin who lived in Persia. She replaced Queen Vashti when the latter was banished from her throne by King Xerxes. Queen Esther saved the Jews from Haman, the evil minister of King Xerxes who convinced him to kill all Jews. Queen Esther proved to be a woman of unusual wisdom and courage, who faced evil and adversity with quiet confidence and grace. She allowed herself to be prepared by God for the task and later found favor with the king, along with her cousin Mordecai. Even though God was not directly mentioned in the book of Esther, His hand and perfect timing were manifested all throughout this point in history. God specifically worked through His invisible hand of providence for the good of His people. Therefore, those who wonder whether God is at work in their lives can learn from Queen Esther's story. Mary Magdalene, the role model disciple. Mary Magdalene is known as one of Jesus' close and faithful followers and is called the second most important woman in the New Testament. The Gospel describes her as one who embodied courage and stood by Jesus during His hour of suffering on the cross. She was at Jesus' burial and was the only person to be listed in all four Gospels as the first to realize that Jesus had risen and testify to that central teaching in Christianity. Following Jesus Christ did not mean that she was spared from trying times, however. For instance, none among the disciples believed Mary Magdalene when she first testified about the resurrection of Christ. Yet, she held on to what was revealed to her. As Christians, we too will be a target of ridicule and distrust, but we must hold on to the truth, that is Jesus. Mary, the mother of the Messiah Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. Mary was a willing servant who trusted God and obeyed God's call. Mary was fearful and troubled when she heard the most incredible news that she would bear the begotten One of God. Even though she could not comprehend how she would conceive the Savior, she responded to God with faith and obedience. Mary's calling held great honor, but it demanded great suffering as well. God empowered her to serve one of the most important callings ever given to a human being. As in Mary, God looks at our hearts when He calls us to His service, not the usual qualification that man privileges. God often chooses and uses the most unlikely of choices. Mary was a woman of rare strength and obedience. She was the only human being to be with Jesus throughout His entire life, from His birth until His death. She gave birth to Him as her baby and watched Him die as her Savior. The women of the Bible. They were women of passion, power, and purpose, who lived through difficult times and faced undeniable odds. Some rose to overcome challenges, others did not. Some held faith and courage close to their hearts, others wavered, but rediscovered faith along their journey. However long ago they lived, these women's stories nonetheless carry timeless messages of love, hope, and redemption that we can all learn from.